Welcome back to the latest episode of the Writers Podcast. I have with me today guest Candace MacPhie. Hi, Candace. How are you doing?
Hi there. Good, thank you.
And you are a writer of what type of books?
It's a nonfiction memoir about backpacking.
Oh, okay. And we'll get into that.
Mhm.
Your background is not in writing, though, correct?
No,
No,
no, no, no, no, no.
no. So do you want to talk about that a little bit, or like what's the
Sure.
background that got you from where you were to where you are now as a writer?
It's not a really natural leap in terms of what I did.
Okay.
I did the more conventional route and
Mm-hmm.
got an undergraduate and then a master's degree in business.
Okay.
And then I worked at large corporations for about 20 years. And
Okay.
I did everything from managing information systems to running change management team who dealt with anything from facilities changes to large
Okay.
mergers and acquisitions. So working with culture and really understanding how to move people along with any kind of change that you put into place in
Okay.
quite large scale.
All
So
right.
so that was my sort of day job. I
Mm-hmm.
also, as am an executive coach, was helping a lot of folks, especially during COVID, make that transition from,
Mm-hmm.
okay, what am I? This is my career now. What do I want to move into in terms of
Sure.
the next phase of my career? And so I did a lot of that, and then my sort of moment, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
was I just looked at my kids one day and they were just getting older. And because I was working so much, I had a nanny and then and you know what? I didn't really like my kids very much. They
Oh.
were just, um, it was very Moorish. It was very just buy me a new one. And I didn't
Mm.
like, and I just felt that I had kids to be involved in their lives, and I didn't have that opportunity because I was working so much.
Mm-hmm.
So I just quit my whole thing and
Okay.
just decided to try something new, and
Cool.
did a hybrid of executive coaching and writing. So, and it took me a long time to learn how to do it, though, because
Mm-hmm.
whipping out PowerPoint slides versus actually writing a story is
Right.
very different skill
All right.
set. So it was a very
Okay.
humbling experience. And
Mm-hmm.
so it just took a little time to learn how to do that.
Okay. So your um your background that your book series is based on is at a certain point in your life you decided to go backpacking across Europe, or
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
so
I
how did that come about? The
Yeah,
backpacking.
so that was another sort of twist in my life. It's probably the first one.
Mm-hmm.
After my mom had cancer for a very long time, from
Oh,
when I
okay.
was 14, and she died when I was 22. And I grew up in Montreal, in Quebec, Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And every English Montrealer at the time used to drive down the highway and go to move to Toronto and try to forge their life there.
Okay.
I'll be honest, I didn't really groove with the lifestyle in Toronto. It was tough coming off the back of spending so much time as a caregiver and then
Mm-hmm.
trying to figure out who I was when I didn't really know, because it's a lot of time in your life where you spend looking after someone else and not like really looking after yourself. And I didn't really know how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I did the same thing again. I quit and sold everything I had and moved the stuff I wanted to keep into my dad's basement, and then just left with the backpack. And I traveled around the world for over a year, and that's what this story is.
Okay.
It's about
and
that
and
adventure.
and why did you decide to backpack, or why did you decide to
Um,
travel? What
yeah,
was
I
that?
had done. Yep. Go ahead.
Go
Sorry.
ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. No, no. I had done some backpacking before, and it was the one thing that I actually connected with and liked. Let me tell you, I
Okay.
tried a bunch of stuff. Like when I lived in Toronto, I didn't know who I was and what I liked, and I tried a whole bunch of stuff from like Tai Chi to toll painting to I did dragon boat racing. I back in the day, step aerobics, did a whole bunch of stuff, but there was nothing that really distracted me from how empty I was feeling. And I just felt that I just needed to a complete change of pace in order to
Hmm.
be able to survive. Mental health at that point wasn't something that was talked about, and it
Okay.
wasn't something that people catered to. It wasn't as prevalent. And it was kind of my way of managing my mental health to be able to just shed all the responsibilities and just go out there and just live very simply.
Okay. And how old were you at the time when you started?
I was pretty old to be doing the backpacking thing.
Okay.
I left when I was 26, so
Okay.
it's a bit older too, and it felt slightly irresponsible to be just checking it in and going. But to be honest, I was not thriving, surviving,
Hmm.
living in the life I was in, and I just needed to completely just do something completely different to be able
Right.
to get through.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to age you, but what what time period was
It's all
this?
right.
Is this in the
No,
90s
it's
or that
fine.
you?
I can tell you I'm over 50, it's fine.
Okay.
That's part of
Was
my
this the
challenge with
90s?
writing this. Yes, it
Yeah.
was in the 90s. So
Okay.
it was a wonderful time period in terms of folks now who, pick up your phone and you have your whole life in a little square or rectangle,
Mhm.
excuse me. But back then, it was a big heavy guidebook and a wing and a
Mhm.
prayer. There was no there was internet cafes, but they were pretty rare. And
Right.
phone calling was so expensive, and you
Mhm.
really were on your own out there. So I
Okay.
tried to encapsulate that in the story and to allow the reader to have the full experience of traveling during this time and
Right.
the sort of real struggles of getting from one place to another.
Okay. And as a single woman, did you not ever feel um, uncomfortable or fear for your safety? Like maybe I've read too many horrors or seen too many horror
No,
movies, but
no, you're
like that
not.
seems like
You're
a pretty
not.
brave brave
Yeah, you're
choice.
not far off. I actually was book 2 has a lot of that. I'm
Okay.
It's the first book isn't too bad in terms of the harassment. There is some, but
Mhm.
it's not that bad.
Okay.
Book 2 got pretty bad when we were traveling through the Baltics and through Poland, and
Mm.
there was lots of comments, and there is an assault that happens in book 2,
Oh,
and there is a lot of penises. We saw a lot of penises. There was a lot of flashing of penises. I'm not going to lie. And
okay.
then it got pretty bad in book 3 when we go to the Middle East. The Middle East was just like when we were in Cairo, for example, we could only go out. I was with a couple of other girls at this point, thank
Mm.
goodness. And we could only leave the hostel for 2 hours a day. It was too exhausting otherwise. People would wait outside the hostel and follow you in packs, and then they would
Oh.
tag out at a certain block, and then another group would follow you. It's
Mm.
constant harassment. So there was a lot of that, and I, rewriting it. But while I was writing the story, I didn't realize at the time because I had some blinders on. But
Mhm.
yeah, there were some times I definitely didn't feel safe. But
Okay.
yeah.
So you've got a 5-book series, based on your
Hmm.
backpacking adventures. How long
Hmm.
were you actually backpacking for?
Yeah. The 5 book series is about a year and a bit, a little over a year.
Okay.
And I backpacked for around like what by the time I had left, and then it was about 9 months, but there's some time in the first book where I live in London for a while
Mm,
and then take off. So it's about 9 months on the road. It's a long haul. So
mm,
my original plan was to write one book. I had this
right.
grand plan, but in order to meet my objective, which was for the reader to really experience the time period and to
Mm-hmm.
experience what it was like to travel at that time, both as a woman and as someone who was kind of recovering from this really long period of looking after someone and being a caregiver and trying to discover who you are, and also just to get over that that grief as well.
Okay.
So yeah.
So so this was um the intent of the series for you was sort of like a self-examination, or just taking stock of who you were then as to where you are now, kind of thing, or
Yeah, I don't it didn't start out like that. It started
mm-hmm.
out as just a desire to share the story,
Mm-hmm.
and, because a lot of funny things happened. It's funny. It's not
Okay.
just about drama,
Right.
drama, bad stuff. There's some funny
Okay.
stuff, and I still laugh when I read it, and,
Okay.
my goal is really to balance the humor and the story in terms of the heaviness of the story, but balancing with
Mm-hmm.
humor and just ridiculous situations that I get into just because of cultural differences.
Sure.
Back then, the only thing we really had to go on was like National Geographic and Indiana Jones movies. Because to be fair, had you ever seen like anything about Egypt other than Indiana Jones or
Right.
anything like that? And it
Yeah.
was just the fascination started with watching those kinds of films and really
Mm.
from my desire to travel and to see the world. um, so it wasn't about, you know, touting my story. It was about sharing my story because I do appreciate that not everyone had the opportunity just to chuck it in and leave.
Right.
And maybe some folks wanted to and they didn't get a chance. So, or maybe they did it and didn't write it down, and you can get a chance to relive it, or you can get a
Okay.
chance to experience it.
Mm-hmm.
I've had so much feedback on the first book in terms of folks who have recently had, experienced a loss, a personal loss, and
Mm.
just them saying to me, you know what, in 3 pages, you encapsulated exactly how I feel right now. And
Okay.
I felt really good about that because I thought, maybe that'll help someone, just to understand that they're not alone. And
Mm-hmm.
also, as a young woman coming into yourself and understanding who you are, it's not an easy job, and I'm sure as a young man too, but obviously I'm coming from my angle. Um,
Sure.
but it was an interesting to share that and to do it, but it was more about sharing the experience. That's where it started from. But it ended
Okay.
up being quite a reflective exercise because
Mm-hmm.
in order to tell an interesting story, I had to dig in pretty deep and really open up and share some things
Right.
that I hadn't faced, I guess. So
Mm-hmm.
it has been a bit healing, but that wasn't the goal when I started.
Okay.
So it's just been a nice bonus, if you will.
Sure. And so you're planning 5 books in the series. How did you decide on 5 books? Is it sort of like location specific, or what differentiates one book from the next book?
Yes, so it is a bit location specific.
Okay.
It's also people specific. So,
Okay.
book two, for example, I travel mostly with one Australian woman that I met,
Mhm.
and I tried to keep it um, within themes of like what was happening at the time as well. So, in terms of
Okay.
being able to um, the experience and the traveling that you do is kind of what happens, but there's a story that sort of starts and ends in each book. So my
Okay.
goal was to write a series, but you could just technically just pick up one book and just
Sure.
read it.
Sure.
And you might be a little bit angry that you missed a little bit in the other ones, but if I introduce the same character or something, I'll kind of let you know what's going
Okay.
on.
All
Mhm.
right. So your first book has already been out for a while, correct? Finding Color?
Mhm. Yes, it is.
And
Yeah.
um what that time period is right after your mother's death? I guess, and then
Yeah, it starts a couple years after my mother's death, and then there's a bit
okay,
of a break, and then it goes into it again. Yeah.
okay, and what's the story and about it in the first book that you were
The
trying to
story
accomplish?
in the first book was is just about how I had taken, I had spent so long looking after someone else
Mhm.
um, and not understanding who I was, and then
Okay.
just being extremely depressed and not realizing, because remember I'd said about the mental health, nobody talked about it and nobody would say, oh, you're depressed. They would just go, oh, you're a bit down, maybe we should go out for some drinks. There was never let's look after yourself. Let's figure out what,
Right.
what we need to do to help you along. And so it was my sort of moment where I looked in the mirror to say, okay, you need to do something different. So this whole book in Finding Color is just that I lived this really sort of miserable gray, black,
Mhm.
beige world, and just being able to understand, to find color along the way, and to sort of get to know yourself a little bit,
Mhm.
and to just sort of poke in the box of grief. But it was more just um, taking that step to make the change. So,
Okay.
and
And
and with a lot of funny stuff along the way. Yeah.
sure. And I see your first place that you went to was Greece. Did that put color into your world? Some color back into your world?
It did. It did. I think Greece really kicked everything off for me. I met
Mhm.
someone there who had inspired me to take a chance, and it was really because of this person that I left home in the first place. And
Mm.
there's a bit of a tumultuous relationship that follows, but it ends up being just about my trip after that. So.
Okay. I'm curious, did you, when you were actually on the trip, did you keep journals of any type? Or because when you're writing these books, are you just doing this all from memory or
Oh my
how
gosh,
did that
there'd be no way. Yes, so I know. Uh, Journaling, it's funny. I did all the things I needed to do in terms of recovering, and journaling is one of the things that folks say really helps you kind of
Okay.
get through whatever you're getting through. So yeah, I journaled a lot. There's a lot of crap there though, so
Mm.
I kind of had to wade through the crap,
Mhm.
and to be able to tease out what would be an interesting anecdote or scene to share.
Okay.
So, but
And
yes.
did your journals surprise you in any way? Like, had your memories colored certain events in a way that were different than what you actually wrote about at the time, or how did that work out for you?
I think the journals were a lot more whiny than I actually put in the book. So I didn't want to. So whiny. I thought, oh my God, I want to punch myself. So I had to. Oh God, it's so embarrassing. When
Yeah.
I was reading some of them, it was a little bit embarrassing. So what I tried to
Mhm.
do was to find a nice balance. I think that was one of my main challenges, was to um, stay true to the person that I was, with
Mhm.
writing within this brain and this person that I am now. So
Right.
leaving in the ridiculous things. My dad's neighbor. My dad just moved to Calgary. I live in Calgary now, and
Mm.
she read the book and she actually flagged me down. She was so mad. She said, "I have a bone to pick with you about how you acted in chapter, whatever." And she just laid into me, and I said, "Yes, yes, I understand." And I felt the same way. But in order to really
Yeah.
tell you what happened, it would be very boring if I wrote it with the brain that I'm in now, in terms of
Yeah.
much more
Yeah.
conservative and not taking as many chances. So yeah.
Sure, sure. Uh, what was your dad's reaction to the book?
You know what? I have to give it to my dad, because he was one of the first people that read it. He was always giving me feedback. He's been the
Mhm.
last person to read it. My dad's a really clever guy and reads loads, so he was my final editor in terms of grammatical,
Okay.
going through. And you know what? He powered through, and it's not an easy read, I'm sure, to read about your daughter, but he
Mhm.
went right in there and read it. So I was
Okay.
proud for him to do that.
All
Yeah.
right. So let's get a little drill down a little bit into how you actually got the book written. You had
Mhm.
no writing experience. Writing fiction is one thing. You're sort of doing an autobiographical
Mhm.
memoir, I guess you could say, even though
Mhm.
it's guised as a travel series. How
Mhm.
did you approach it? Because uh, you know, I think one of the common misconceptions people have about nonfiction, or especially autobiographies or whatnot, is that you're just reciting facts when you're still really
Mhm.
telling a story. Did you
Mhm.
have that knowledge
Mhm.
at the beginning, or did you have to
No.
learn that? No.
Yeah, no. I think I've rewritten book 1 about 50 times. I have maybe 300 versions of it saved on my computer. It's, because when you first start writing, and I
Mhm.
truly think everybody can write a book. I would encourage everyone, if they have a book in them, to write a book, but
Mhm.
I didn't wanna just write a book. I wanted to write a good book.
Sure.
So that took time. And
Mhm.
as I said, I know doing PowerPoints and being succinct and closing things
Mhm.
off is a completely different genre of writing and presenting information than actually writing a book. I had so much to learn, but I loved it.
Mhm.
I was in the same job for ages, and I was really good at my job, like really,
Mhm.
really good. I would get feedback, and my boss would be like, great. There would be no constructive feedback. And it got a little boring. And the first time I wrote it and wrote it and wrote it. And then I finally found an editor a content editor who was understood what I was looking to do.
Mhm.
And ooh, that first feedback was really rough. And I think I had to kind of rock in the corner for like a week because I felt that the book was so much further along than it was, but it wasn't. And
Uh-huh.
the person I found was kind but thorough in their feedback and
Mhm.
really quite constructive. And once I got over the initial, okay, that wasn't as good as I thought feeling, I really understood exactly what they were trying to get across and rewrote it and rewrote it and rewrote it.
Okay.
And just to understand the principles of writing that when you read a book and you just enjoy it, I wasn't watching for the structure. I wasn't watching for the components. I wasn't watching for the craft.
Mhm.
Um, but now I do. And now I appreciate or learn as I go through each time I read a book.
Okay.
But it was a very humbling experience that took years in terms of
Mm.
my confidence to be able to know how to do this well. It wasn't something that came
Okay.
naturally, like, at all,
Right. Did
at
you
all.
take any writing courses or, get involved with writing groups? Because I know Calgary has a pretty, active writing community.
Yeah, they do. I didn't, and
Mhm.
that's probably to my detriment. I did
Mhm.
feel like I had a decent support group in terms of this person I was able to work with
Mhm.
who kept every time we went back kept teaching me the components and understanding how to do
Mm.
this correctly. It's a competency that if it comes naturally to some folks, I'm like so jealous because it did not come naturally to me.
Right.
And I had to work hard at it. And but I'm I enjoy it now, in the
Cool.
beginning, and I get it now, and I get
Mhm.
all the things she's been telling me for the last few years, and I get different types of feedback from her. The first couple of times I sent material to her, it wasn't so much on the story at all. It was on the
Mhm.
style of her writing. And finally, when I sent her book 2 again, it was okay. Now I can give you feedback on the story in terms of how to make the story better.
Mm.
It took a lot of time to be able to do this. And I think each time I write, I think I get better. It's
Sure.
definitely an
Mhm.
evolving craft for me for sure. Mhm.
Okay. Very cool. And, I'm assuming the second book didn't take you years to write.
No, no, I'd kind of done a journal transfer first, and that took
Mhm.
my typing was very slow.
Okay.
So it took me a little bit of time to transfer the journal and to really understand how to structure it.
Mhm.
So once I got the structure organized and transferred the journal, it was then taking those journal, which I'd already sort of taken most of the whiny stuff out, but taking the stories within the journal and to be able to build a wider story, or to take I can't even call it a story. I can say the situations that happened in the journal and turning it into a story.
Mm.
I have to tell you, it would be 10 million times easier to write a book, like from scratch, just a story, than to
Mm.
have wrestled out everything that I did here.
Mhm.
It was definitely just a real sort of circular, iterative redo, redo, redo.
Right.
I do believe wholeheartedly that it would have been easier had I had an excellent idea sort of churning in my brain and be able to sort of plop it down
Okay.
into.
You
Mhm.
said something there that I'll come back to later. So if I don't ask a question about I have an outstanding question. Remind me if I forget to ask you.
Okay.
But let's stay on your book series for now. So your second book is coming out in April 2024, and it's Life Strikes Back. I don't know if that's
Mhm.
a riff on The Empire Strikes Back or.
It sure is. Yeah,
Okay.
it is.
Do
See,
you want
now
to
I knew we would get along.
yeah, do you want to expand on that a little or?
Yeah, when I started to write book two, I just thought, oh my word, there's so much sort of challenges that happens in this book. And I don't know about you, but when I watched Empire Strikes Back, I bawled like a baby when Han Solo was put in
Frozen. Yeah.
his like frozen. And
Yeah.
I just, but what I enjoy, and I thought about that movie and I thought, okay, it was all the group had so many challenges. What was it about that movie that made it not super depressing? And
Mhm.
it was the jokes, it was the quips, it was the
Yep.
relationships, it was the ability to keep a positive, mindset going through
Mhm.
and to face your challenges. And to me, that's exactly what happens in book two. And it was, constant, like you said, in terms of traveling as a woman, constant harassment. There's an assault. There's, you know, public masturbation. There's like really crappy places to stay. There's awful experiences, but all of that happens. But in between, it's those perfect moments where you
Mhm.
laugh and have fun and see some amazing things. And it just
Okay.
felt to me that this story goes up and down. But the premise of book two is really about friendship and finding those relationships to be able to get through those really crappy times. And that's why it's
Okay.
called Life Strikes Back. Mhm.
Okay. And I'm curious, you obviously met and shared rooms and facilities with other people on similar journeys as you.
Mhm.
Have you kept in contact with any of them or yeah? So, because
Yeah,
oddly enough, Australians seem to come up a lot anytime I'm
they
traveling.
do. They do. They're always around. Right? I
Yeah,
don't know if
yeah,
there's even any Australians in Australia.
yeah.
No, there's a lot of folks who I'm still in contact with. And this summer, actually, I took my kids to Australia and we did our own type of backpacking adventure slash in suitcases in a car. But um, but we did go and visit a lot of folks that I had met and hadn't
Cool.
seen for a number of years. So I'm still friends with all of them. There's people in book one who I still consider some of my closest friends today.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's very cool. So Life Strikes Back's coming out in April, and then I
Mhm.
see you've got a pretty aggressive schedule going here. Then we go to Hello, I Am Here,
Mhm.
and I don't know what that's a reference to. Is that maybe a Pink Floyd song or something? I don't know.
I can tell you what that is if you like.
Okay.
Hello, I'm Here is from the Men in Egypt one of my favorite call out lines. There was a lot of call out lines, but
Oh,
was
okay.
"Hello, I'm here." You would walk by and they'd go, "Hello, I'm here," and you'd go, "Okay, that's great news."
And
And you
I'm
just
over
keep
here.
marching along, and I'm marching along the sidewalk. I'm not paying attention to you.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was the more you know the nicer versions of how they called you out. Yeah.
Okay. And were you still whiny in your journals at this part of your
At that point, I felt I was justified for all the stuff that happened. I didn't mind my whininess.
Okay, good. And then I see you've got Beautifully Warped, which is coming out January 2025, and
Mhm.
that's more about Africa, I guess. Is that
Yes,
right?
yes,
That
I
that sounds
did
exciting.
that one is, I can't wait to finish writing that because, like I said, all of the books, I have transcribed all the journals. So the words are there, but they're just very poorly organized. So I'm looking forward to reshaping the words I have for book 4 because book 4 was a safari that I took in Africa, and it was just the most crazy thing. It was on an overland truck, and I was the only Canadian, and with a bunch of with 25, 26 Australians, New Zealanders, English folks, just crazy Irish, Welsh. And let me tell you, they all like curry. There's a lot of curry. I didn't
Oh,
realize just how many
yeah,
things you could do with curry, from
right,
eggs to just a whole bunch of
right.
curry action. So,
And do you
yes.
like curry?
And no, not at all. It's not it's not something that's ever agreed with me. And
Oh, okay.
yeah. So the Africa one I'm looking forward to because that one's loads of fun.
Right. Okay, and then you've got one more, Landing
Mhm,
Place, which that title I think is pretty self-evident, and that's due
mhm,
out in June 2025.
mm.
Um, and whereabouts are you in the writing process now? What book are you working on?
I'm just in the phases of putting the final touches on book 2. And
Okay.
then, yeah, and then heading over to book 3. Book 3's in a really good place. There's just some edits that have to do. And then book 4 and 5 need to be completely rewritten. Like, the words are there. I just need to fix them up. So, but
Right.
everything's there. It's coming along. I'm excited to for the writing journey. That's for sure.
Cool. Cool. And now that you've got this all mapped out, you know, as a mother, what if one of your kids came to you and said they were going to go backpacking? How would you feel about that?
I would tell them to do it. I think,
Oh, okay.
absolutely. I
Okay.
think it's an amazing experience. It was just I would tell them to call home more than I did because I didn't really call home that much. I don't
Right.
know what my dad was thinking. Months would go by and I would be in the Middle East and he wouldn't hear from me for 4 weeks, and there would be no way to get in touch. There was just
Hmm.
like I just couldn't phone, I couldn't email. So I could imagine he was wondering what was happening. So
Right.
I'd want to be in touch a little more. And I think as a parent, it would be almost easier because they would post pictures and stuff online
Right.
and I would be able to. I
Yeah.
used to package up my film and mail it to my dad, and he would get them
Okay.
developed at the hour photo and then tell me he'd look through them. And then that's how he could see what I was doing.
Ah,
So.
okay. And
Mhm.
do any of the photos feature in your books at all, or?
I have a spot on their website where I've actually
Oh,
scanned a
okay.
few. Yes, the old scan the old prints in and pop them up
Right.
online. So there is a
Okay.
few photos there from the trip to get a little taste of what it was like. But they're grainy and they're just,
Yeah.
not that
Yeah.
great. But it's
Okay.
an idea.
All right. Is there anything about this series that hasn't come up yet that you'd like to mention?
No,
No?
no.
Okay. Then I'm going to ask the question I wanted to ask you because you made what I thought was a pretty bold statement when you said writing a fiction story would be easier than writing
Mhm.
than what you're doing. Do you have any inclination to writing fiction at any time in the future, or?
Yeah, I would. I think that would be my ultimate goal is to write
Mhm.
fiction, and I don't. I'm not. I'm not dissing anybody who writes fiction. I
No,
think
I know.
anybody
No, I
who
know. I
can
was
write a
just
book
teasing you.
is
Yeah.
a hero for me.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it's a very lonely journey, and it's a
Hmm.
very it's you need a lot of motivation to kind of get to the end.
Hmm.
So yes, I would like to, and I think the
Okay.
part of my struggle came from that my first book that I wrote was learning how to write as well.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
it's a bit of it's a very nice knock to your confidence in terms of, you think you've got something really good. The
Hmm.
first year, like, oh, this is so good, and it's really not.
Yeah.
But it's just wonderful if you can kind of embrace the process and get over yourself, and
Hmm.
then just keep practicing and getting better at it. Then
Okay.
that's what you have
Very
to
cool.
do.
Well, I want to wish you all the success with your series, and when
Mhm.
you've got some more stuff that you want to talk about, we'll look forward to having you back on the show again.
That would be great, Lou. Thanks.
Okay. Well, I've really enjoyed the conversation. Enjoy the rest of your day, and happy writing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Take care.
You too.
Okay.
Bye bye.
Bye.